Somewhere in the waters surrounding Iran right now, there is an American submarine that has been there for 90 days. Iran knows it exists. Iran has been searching for it every single day. Iran cannot find it. And it is carrying 154 cruise missiles. Not nuclear warheads, cruise missiles. 154 Tomahawks, each one carrying a 1,000-pound precision warhead, each one jeeps guided to within 10 feet of its target, each one with a range of 1,000 miles from wherever that submarine is sitting right now in water Iran cannot see into. One submarine, one salvo authorization. 154 simultaneous impacts across a target list that would dismantle Iran's ability to function as a coordinated military force before the first wave of smoke cleared. The Iranian Navy has been running search patterns over the Arabian Sea for 90 days. Their coastal sonar networks have been listening around the clock. Their intelligence services have been working every available source. The submarine is not a rumor. It is not a diplomatic bluff. It is a confirmed operational deployment of the USS Ohio, a vessel that spent its first decades carrying the nuclear warheads pointed at the Soviet Union, and now carries enough conventional firepower to end this conflict on its own. And Iran cannot find it. That fact, the 90 days of failed searching, is not a minor intelligence footnote. It is the central strategic reality of this entire conflict that almost no coverage has properly examined. Because the weapon you cannot locate is the weapon you cannot preemptively strike, cannot diplomatically leverage against, and cannot build a deterrence architecture around. Iran's entire military doctrine is built on deterrence through threat. You cannot threaten something you cannot find. To understand why that matters so completely, you need to understand what the USS Ohio actually is, what it went through to become what it is now, and what 154 Tomahawks does to a specific target list in a specific operational window. Start with the history. Because the Ohio's origin story is the story of the most dangerous submarine program the United States ever built, and the conversion that made it even more relevant to the conflict playing out right now. The USS Ohio was commissioned in 1981 as the lead boat of the Ohio-class ballistic missile submarine program, SSBN 726. It was built to carry 24 Trident ballistic missiles, each one capable of carrying multiple independently targetable nuclear warheads to ranges exceeding 4,000 miles. It was designed to be the survivable second strike leg of the American nuclear triad. The doctrine was simple. If the Soviet Union launched a first strike against the United States that destroyed land-based missiles and strategic bombers, the submarines at sea, invisible, unlocatable, continuously on patrol, would survive and deliver the retaliatory strike that made the first strike suicidal for whoever launched it. The Ohio-class submarines were built to survive a nuclear war. Their acoustic signature, their operating depth, their hull construction, and their patrol procedures were all engineered around one operational requirement. Soviet nuclear hunter-killer submarines, the Akula class, the Victor class, the most capable anti-submarine warfare platforms ever built, had to be unable to find them. That requirement was met. The Ohio-class boats were never reliably tracked by Soviet assets during the Cold War. The Soviets knew the submarines existed. They knew roughly where the patrol areas were. They could not find the individual boats when they needed to. That failure, the Soviet Union's failure to solve the acoustic detection problem that the Ohio class presented, is the inherited baseline from which Iran is now attempting to conduct its own search operation. Iran's anti-submarine warfare capability is not in the same universe as the Soviet assets that failed to solve this problem for 4 decades. In 2002, the United States Navy began the conversion program that transformed 4 Ohio-class submarines from nuclear deterrence platforms into the most conventionally powerful strike vessels ever put in the water, with 7 Tomahawk cruise missiles each. The math produces 154 Tomahawks per submarine. The remaining 2 tubes were converted into lockout chambers for Special Operations Forces, Navy SEALs, and other Special Operations personnel who can be inserted and extracted while it remains submerged. The USS Ohio was the first boat converted under this program, redesignated from SSBN 726 to SSGN 726. Guided missile submarine, not ballistic, not nuclear, conventional strike and special operations. The most devastating conventional weapons platform the United States has ever operated beneath the ocean's surface. Now understand what 154 Tomahawks means in operational terms, against the specific target set that this conflict has produced. The BGM-109 Tomahawk Block 4 is the current operational variant carried by the Ohio. Range of 1,000 miles from launch point. Subsonic cruise profile at approximately 500 miles per hour. Terminal guidance combining terrain following radar and digital scene matching that produces impact accuracy of 10 feet or less. Warhead options include the Block 4 conventional unitary warhead at 1,000 pounds and the JMEWS penetrating warhead variant designed for hardened target sets. The Ohio carries both variants in its tube configuration depending on the assigned target list. 154 missiles. Simultaneous launch capability across all tubes. From submerged depth, the full salvo can be in the air within minutes. There is no warning. There is no radar signature. There is no launch flash visible from shore. The first indication that the launch has occurred is the sound of the ocean surface being broken by 154 missile boosters igniting. By the time that sound registers, the missiles are already accelerating toward cruise altitude. They cannot be recalled. They cannot be jammed at launch. The only intercept opportunity is during the terminal approach phase. And Iran's degraded air defense architecture, systematically dismantled by F-35 operations since February 28th, does not have the radar coverage density or the intercept missile inventory to engage 154 simultaneous inbound threats. 1 Ohio salvo. First wave, that is the operational picture. Now apply that payload to the specific Iranian target list. The IRGC's command and control infrastructure is distributed across approximately 40 primary nodes, regional headquarters, communications relay facilities, logistics coordination centers, and the hardened command posts that the senior IRGC leadership operates from during sustained conflict. 154 Tomahawks with 10-foot accuracy against 40 primary command nodes means 3 to 4 missiles per target with full reserve capacity for secondary infrastructure. The power distribution network that sustains the IRGC's communications architecture, the specific transformer stations and switching facilities that military intelligence has mapped, as the nodes whose simultaneous destruction produces cascading communications blackout across the entire IRGC command structure, is a target set of approximately 20 facilities. The ballistic missile storage and maintenance infrastructure that Iran has been using to sustain the missile campaigns of the last 90 days represents a target set of approximately 15 hardened facilities. The radar network that constitutes Iran's surviving air defense coverage after the F-35 degradation operations adds another 10 targets to the list. 1 Ohio salvo addresses all of them simultaneously in the first strike wave. And the submarine is already loaded. It is already within range. It has been within range for 90 days. Here is why Iran cannot find it. And this is the part that deserves the detailed examination that most coverage has not provided. The Ohio-class submarine's acoustic invisibility is not a single engineering achievement. It is the product of 6 separate systems that each reduce the vessel's detectable acoustic signature, whose combined effect produces a noise floor that is operationally indistinguishable from natural ocean background noise at the ranges where Iranian sonar systems are operating. First, the anechoic tile system. The Ohio's hull is covered in approximately 46,000 individual rubber tiles, each one engineered to absorb incoming sonar pulses rather than reflect them back to the emitter. Active sonar, the ping that submarine hunters send into the water, depends on that reflection. Against a conventional submarine hull, the ping returns a detectable echo. Against the Ohio's tiled hull, the pulse is absorbed. The echo that returns to the Iranian sonar operator is orders of magnitude weaker than the return from an untreated hull at the same range. The effective detection range is dramatically reduced. Second, the reactor plant isolation mount. The Ohio's nuclear reactor and its associated machinery, pumps, heat exchangers, turbines, are mounted on a raft system that mechanically decouples every vibrating component from the pressure hull using a multi-stage vibration isolation architecture. The mechanical noise that these components generate does not transmit to the hull and does not radiate into the surrounding water. Passive sonar, listening for mechanical noise rather than sending a ping, cannot hear the reactor plant on an Ohio-class submarine at operational ranges. Third, the pump jet propulsor. The Ohio was refitted with a pump jet propulsion system that replaced the conventional propeller. The conventional propeller generates cavitation, the formation and collapse of vapor bubbles, that produces a distinctive broadband noise signature detectable by passive sonar. The pump jet eliminates cavitation at operational speeds entirely. The acoustic signature of the propulsion system at patrol speeds is below the ambient noise floor of the ocean environment. Fourth, the operating depth. The Ohio operates at depths that place it below the thermocline, the boundary layer between warm surface water and cold deep water, where the temperature differential causes sound to refract away from the surface. Sonar pulses propagating downward through the thermocline bend away from the cold water mass below it. A submarine operating below the thermocline is in an acoustic shadow zone relative to sonar systems operating above it. The geometry of the Persian Gulf and Arabian Sea thermocline structure places the Ohio's optimal patrol depth in a zone where Iranian assets have severely degraded detection geometry. Fifth, the patrol pattern randomization. The Ohio's operational orders specify patrol routes that are algorithmically randomized within a defined patrol area. The submarine does not follow a predictable track. It does not return to the same position on a predictable schedule. Even if Iranian intelligence established the boundaries of the Ohio's patrol area through inference, the submarine's position within that area at any given moment cannot be predicted from pattern analysis. There is no pattern to analyze. The emission control posture? The Ohio is operating under strict EMCON, emissions control. No active radar, No radio transmissions on detectable frequencies. No acoustic beacons. The submarine communicates through extremely low-frequency one-way transmissions that it receives but does not respond to on detectable bands. It is acoustically, electromagnetically, and electronically silent. The only way to find it is to physically detect its hull with a sonar system close enough to overcome the anechoic tile absorption, the thermal layer geometry, and the ambient noise masking simultaneously. At the ranges where Iranian search assets are operating, that combination of factors does not resolve into a detectable contact. The Ohio is in the water. It is listening. It is not being heard. Now understand the full pressure architecture that the Ohio's unlocatable presence creates. The IRGC's strategic doctrine has always rested on the principle of symmetric deterrence, the idea that Iran's ability to threaten escalation constrains American willingness to escalate. Fast attack boats threatening tankers creates insurance rate pressure. Ballistic missiles threatening Gulf state infrastructure creates political pressure. Drone swarms creating air defense ammunition consumption creates sustainment pressure. The doctrine works when the threat is mutual, when Iran can credibly threaten costs that the American side finds unacceptable. The Ohio breaks the symmetry of that equation completely. Iran cannot threaten the Ohio. It cannot target it. It cannot hold it at risk. It cannot credibly claim that a strike on Iranian territory will produce a counterstrike against the platform delivering that strike. The Ohio is immune to Iranian deterrence not because Iran lacks the will, but because Iran lacks the physical capability to locate it. You cannot deter a weapon you cannot find, and the weapon cannot be found. The three carrier strike groups are visible. Their position is tracked by every satellite and maritime patrol platform in the region. Iran's planners know where they are within nautical miles at any given time. The F-35s are visible when they take off. The Apaches are visible when they engage. The blockade destroyers are visible on AIS transponders, even when they turn the transponders off, because their hull signatures are known to Iranian intelligence through years of observation. The Ohio is none of those things. It has been in the water for 90 days, and the position marked on the Iranian Fleet Command's operational map is the position derived from inference, not detection. The dot on that map is a guess. A very educated guess by very capable intelligence professionals. It is still a guess, and the Ohio is not where the guess says it is. Here is where the conflict's current trajectory intersects with the Ohio's operational presence in a way that changes the calculus of every actor in the theater. The hardline faction's resistance to the negotiating process has been sustained in part by the institutional belief that the cost America is willing to pay to resolve this conflict militarily is bounded by the political constraints on escalation, the coalition partner sensitivity, the global oil price consequences. The Iranian civilian population considerations that American administrations have historically treated as limiting factors on the depth of any strike campaign. The Ohio's presence changes that calculus because it represents a strike capacity that is not bounded by the same operational constraints as the carrier air wings. It is already positioned. It requires no additional force generation. It requires no regional partner cooperation for basing or overflight. It requires no aerial refueling tanker tracks that can be observed and interpreted as pre-strike indicators. The Ohio's salvo launches from a position that no Iranian early warning system is tracking. The Ohio has been on station for 90 days. Its Tomahawk load is intact. The authorization order has not been transmitted. The window for a negotiated resolution is narrowing faster. The only decision required to activate it is the authorization order transmitted on the estremamente low-frequency channel it is already listening to. That decision can be made and transmitted faster than any diplomatic channel can react to prevent it. The hardline faction's negotiating posture assumes that the window between decision and execution is long enough for a diplomatic intervention to prevent the worst outcome. The Ohio closes that window to the length of a transmission. This is what 154 Tomahawks in an unlocatable platform does to the negotiating environment. It removes the assumption that the decision and the outcome are separated by enough time to matter. The message it has not yet received is the only message that matters. The hardline faction in Tehran does not know where the submarine is. They do not know how close the transmission is to being sent. They cannot preemptively strike the platform that would deliver the consequence, and they cannot find it. The civilian government in Tehran continues to receive signals from every direction. The B-2s at Diego Garcia, the three carrier strike groups, the blockade destroying the IRGC's revenue base, China's co-signature on the American nuclear red lines, that the window for a negotiated resolution is narrowing faster than the institutional resistance inside the IRGC is willing to acknowledge. Somewhere in the water, the Ohio is listening. The estremamente low-frequency antenna it trails behind it at patrol depth is capable of receiving one message. No matter how many P3 patrol hours they fly over the Arabian Sea looking for something that is sitting in water they cannot see into, listening for a message they cannot intercept, carrying a payload they cannot survive. The search is still running. The submarine is still there, and the water is still silent.